You can save money by spending more time. And the more time you spend, the more money you save. But the stronger your arms will become.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright, and welcome to my shop. I was going to be doing a video on my new bench top and laminating that up, but it's taking a little bit longer than I had expected, and so while this dries, I figured I'd do another video that a lot of people have been requesting, especially since I did a video earlier this week on how to make free lumber from firewood. A fairly simple process, though it takes a good bit of work to get the free lumber. It is a great source of fantastic lumber. So let's look at a few places where I have gotten lumber in the past and maybe some ideas of where you can find things out there. Now, one of the things you're going to hear over and over and over again is the word Craigslist. It really is one of the best sources for finding cheap lumber, for finding good quality lumber, for finding lumber that people are cleaning out of their garage. And with Craigslist, you can actually go on there and you can set up notifications. So it'll email you whenever someone puts up a posting with a keyword that you have asked for. So whether you have lumber, whether you have free lumber, or you're just looking for free things. One of my favorite is grandfathers. The possessive grandfather then becomes, I'm cleaning out my grandfather's workshop, and I've gotten a lot of good things from that. But the more you get it, the more you'll find little keywords that you really like, or particularly for your area. If there's any local area slang for, trash lumber or something like that, that's a great source for it. For example, a year ago, well, almost 2 years ago now, I had a post pop up that was from grandfathers. And it was, I purchased my grandfather's barn, and now I need to clean out all the lumber. I am selling all of it for 50 cents a board foot. And I looked at the post and went, okay, well, let's see what there is. He had 20,000 board foot of white oak, air dried for 15 years in a barn. And I said, yes, please. I bought as much as I could in my van. Now, that was a very rare thing. It only happens, once a year, once every other year that you come across a find for like 50 cents a board foot for air dried white oak. So I bought 400 board feet, and I'm still working through that stock today. Another recent one is a local camp used to do some milling, and I traded them some work for the wood. So if you find someone who does some milling on the side, then you might be able to trade them for something. Feel free to ask them, hey, is there something I can do to work for the wood as opposed to buying it? My finances aren't that much, but I'd love to work on the hobby. And you'll be surprised. A lot of people are like, yeah, sure, help me mill up a log or two, and we'll call it even. And free lumber. Booyah. Another source people often overlook are the places where lumber is already in use. A lot of people think about pallets. You can take down pallets and come up with some lumber. The lumber may not be that great of a quality, or there may be nail holes in it, but that might fit your aesthetic. Another place is actually looking for old furniture. I've purchased old solid furniture from retail stores and Salvation Armies, and a lot of times that is, the furniture itself isn't all that good, but it has solid lumber in it, and you can clean it up and use that lumber. And for 15, 20 bucks, you can buy an entire furniture piece full of good quality lumber. Often on garage sale days and trash days, people will be throwing out furniture, and you can often find lumber laying alongside the road that someone has thrown out from an old piece of solid wood furniture. And I've gotten quite a bit of lumber from that way. My favorite source of all time, though, is finding the local sawyers. About half of them are going to be listing in Craigslist every month or so. They'll put out a posting and say, I have this lumber, walnut, oak, ash. And you call them up and you go out to their house, and in their backyard they have a wood miser or some other sawmill, and they are lumping up lumber, and they have it air drying in the backyard, or they may have put up a solar kiln or something of that nature. And it may not be the best quality in that it's usually thicker, like 4 quarters, or like 8 quarters or 12 quarter, and so you have to mill it down yourself a little bit more. But that is sometimes what you're looking for. You want that big slab top. And because they're doing all the work themselves, usually the price is a good bit cheaper. And especially if you get to know them and you become their friend and you help them out and you show interest in what they're doing, you can often get some really good prices there, and you know exactly where the wood came from. A lot of times a sawyer can say, yeah, this board came from a stump right over there. And you can know the history behind your wood, and I love that. I think that's one of the reasons why I've never actually shopped at a lumberyard. I've honestly never purchased lumber from a lumberyard. I've purchased lumber from a big box store once before, but that was just because I needed a piece right now, and they happened to have it, and I spent the money, and I hate doing that. But the local sawyer is one of your best suppliers for lumber. Get to know them, find them. Craigslist searches, occasionally on a Google search you'll come across it, and you will find people who just have a sawmill and they like cutting up lumber and they're looking to get rid of it. And you can get some fairly decent prices that way. Another way is you could go out and buy a chainsaw. You don't even need a full chainsaw mill. You can rough cut lumber with a straight chainsaw. Now it takes some skill, and your boards are going to be a little bit wonky, but oh well, you can clean them up. You have a hand plane, you have a scrub plane, and that works fairly well. If you do want to bump up to getting an Alaskan mill with a sliding bar that goes above the chain, you can do that and start milling up your own lumber. Then you start getting into a way of you have to have a place to store it and dry it and a trailer to move it. And then you start getting into you becoming your own sawyer. And then soon you're going to be putting things online. And that sounds kind of familiar, like with Matt Cremona. If you haven't seen his channel, you've got to check it out. He does all of his own woodworking, making his own lumber. And that's a cheap source, and he spends a good bit of time doing it, but he has all the lumber he's ever going to use. And you don't have to worry about that. You don't ever have to go to a mill or find someone else. Speaking of a chainsaw mill, I have a good friend just down the road who has a chainsaw mill, and I went out there and helped him cut down a tree and do some of the milling for that tree, and he ended up giving me 3 slabs, 24-inch by 10-foot long, that I'll be soon turning into a coffee table. So free lumber. I just had to go out and spend a day or so helping him mill up, and that was a lot of fun and well worth the price, and I'm looking forward to making a table out of basically free lumber. The other piece of advice I would give is don't lock yourself into any one particular method. So you have a project coming up and you're thinking about that project and you think, I need 80 board feet for this project. I want to get it all from the same source and that type of thing. But if you start thinking that way, you're going to lock yourself into getting 80 board feet from a supplier who has more than 80 board feet. Whereas if you start thinking about collecting lumber as you see it rather than having it for a particular project, then you may have the lumber you have in stock for the project. And sometimes you may not have 80 board feet of the same wood, but then you can find you have 40 board feet of one and 40 board feet of another, and you can actually make contrasting ideas in a piece. And that can lead to the inspiration to do some new things. Working with the stock you have on hand and what you have found can be extremely beneficial if you're willing to be a bit flexible as opposed to buying lumber for that project. Whereas you start spending more when you're working that way. So I encourage you, start keeping your eyes open. Look for free logs. I had a neighbor just down the road cut down a pine tree the other day, and I almost went to him and asked if I could keep the pine tree so I could make 6x6 timber for a small timber framing project, but I ran out of time and didn't get the chance to ask him before he cut it all up into firewood. Oh well, it's pine, I don't care. But yeah, you'll see trees coming down, you'll find arborists you can make friends with, people who are cutting down trees, and they'd rather you come and take the big logs off their hands so they don't have to chip them up and they don't have to haul them out. And you're helping them out, and they'll give them to you completely for free, especially if you make a relationship with them. Keeping your eye open on Craigslist and seeing what keywords bring up different ideas. You will see lumber being posted on Craigslist almost every day, from local sawyers, from people who are cleaning out their garage. to people who are selling their grandfather's stock of lumber. You would be surprised how much is out there. And if you're willing to do a little legwork, you can find it pretty darn cheap. To give you an idea of what I spend when I'm going to buy a stock of lumber, I try not to spend more than $1 a board foot. Most of the time, most of my white oak I've purchased for 50 cents a board foot. Most of my lumber, I would say about half the lumber I have on hand I've gotten for free. Either I've made a relationship, or I've done some work for it, or I've milled it up myself with an axe. And you just got to do the legwork, and you'll find you can get an amazing amount of lumber. And now you have a stock that you can work with, and you can kind of plan around what you have on hand and what you can work with. Now, those are just some of the sources that I have come across, and there are lots of other sources out there and other people who have their own ideas and things that they've found. So if you have a source or a great idea, leave it in the comments below. And so go look through those comments and see some of the other ideas. There are all sorts of places. If you keep your eyes open, lumber is everywhere. If you're willing to spend a little bit of money, you can get it. If you're willing to spend a little bit of time, you can get a lot of free lumber. Time does exchange for money. So yeah, keep your eyes open. Be willing to be a little flexible, and you might be surprised what you can find. So I hope you liked this video. It was a fun one for me. If you did like it, please hit like and go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Also want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the reason why this channel keeps happening. If you'd like to find out more about that, you can do so right over here. Also, if you liked the video, feel free to check out one of my others. You might find something you like there. And until next time, have a wonderful day.